Chapter 2, Preparation. The GUToP, or Great Unified Theory of Philosophy, is a revolution to thinking. It is much more than the introduction of critical thinking. It is the introduction of a complete theory which allows understanding the behavior of every person as well as every other object in the universe. Please be aware that when dealing with complex systems, there is no possibility to provide a hard proof of a statement. The only feasible way to prove a complex system is to understand its components and then allow your brain to simulate it automatically. If you are not experiencing any contradictions when using your unbiased intuition, you have proved the correctness of your view of the system. Chapter 2.1 Reading Instructions. The most important method to read this book is that you add your own personal probability number in percent to each section. The printed probability is the probability with which the author, so that means myself, rated the section at the time he wrote the statement, which is in 2004. When rereading a section of the book a second time, you might want to adjust the probabilities you had put in the time you read it before. When your probabilities do not change anymore between the times you read the section or you reread the section, you have arrived at your own personal opinion. This opinion could change over time. The likelihood that your opinion will change increases with every different opinion you hear. The most powerful means to challenge your own opinions is the controversial and emotional discussion. Obviously, changing your opinion will greatly depend on the openness or softness of your brain. Different truth seekers will attach different probabilities to the single sections. For complex systems, this is quite normal. However, if most probabilities differ by much from the printed probabilities, we can assume that this reader is a wishful thinker. The complexity and the quantity of things humans have found out are too big to keep in a single brain. Therefore, each human will only keep a subset of human knowledge in his brain. We need to make sure that we know with what accuracy and probability the different pieces of information are stored in our brains. To demonstrate this, I will use the following example. In the chapter, Some Conclusions from Darwinism, I will explain how a couple is able to choose with quite a high probability to conceive a baby boy or baby girl. I will also explain why this characteristic has been introduced by nature and how nature implemented these characteristics. During the research for this baby boy or baby girl subject, I have found many additional pieces of information. Sometimes the information had not been in accordance with my statement. Sometimes new details were added. Therefore, the conclusion of the baby boy or baby girl subject for the Great Unified Theory of Philosophy, hence this book, is that it is very likely nature invented this feature because it served for the success of the human species. However, the details are not yet very accurate. If humans wish to increase the accuracy of this specific statement about boys and girls being born, they will be able to research further and consequently bring the probability that this feature is really a genetic feature, as well as how it is implemented, to 99% or even 99.9%. But we will never arrive at a 100% accuracy because there are no 100% facts in nature. Currently, I would rate the probability that the baby boy or baby girl feature in the way I describe it is a true statement with a probability of 95%. In the text, you will therefore see 95%. Throughout the book, feel free to put in your own probability percentage in these prepared square brackets. It will encourage discussion with yourself or with friends. It will also allow verifying whether your way of thinking changes over time. It is interesting that humans accept to write down exact instructions on how to build complex machines and describe these building processes very accurately. However, whenever we approach human feelings and other soft sciences, humans completely oppose to accept that we are able to write down any instructions. We do not doubt that an engineer is able to give exact descriptions how to design a new material, a new machine, or a new computer. We accept that he, his team, or anybody else constantly improves new components or redesigns the whole thing. However, when we touch feelings, we say, "Stop, this cannot be described. You have no right to analyze me. I do not work like a machine. You will not be able to find out who I am. There is more to me than what you see. There is a secret behind nature." The great unified theory of philosophy completely breaks with this human-centric view. Anything will be analyzed and described without emotions, but still the great unified theory of philosophy allows each person to have whatever view he wants. The great unified theory of philosophy only analyzes and tries to understand why humans have so many different views of this same world we all share. The great unified theory of philosophy is not different to what normal people have been doing during all their lives with the toaster in the kitchen, and most scientists have been doing in their contained field of research. The great unified theory of philosophy is a globalization of that cold, analytic and scientific spirit. Chapter 2.2 A letter to friends. To begin with, I want to show my way of thinking and communicating. Therefore, I decided to print a letter I had written to two friends in April 2003. I have partially read Telmo's book, Homo Sapiens e altre catastrofi, Homo Sapiens and Other Catastrophes by Telmo Pievani. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, some parts in the center and the final chapter. So I did not read the whole book. Unluckily, I'm too slow reading Italian. That disturbs me as I cannot go my pace. I agree with almost all the things I read. The important thing about evolution is that you cannot predict. You can only interpret the result and find a reason why it is as it is. If we would have 100 different types of humans on Earth, from 30 centimeters to 3 meters and from IQ of 20 to 200, which have specialized on different things, well, then it would be like that, and we would find or try to find an explanation why humans are like that. For some time I thought that it would be important to search for the impact of industrialized life on natural selection. But this will not give any important result, because we need just some 100 or 1,000 years until we will have full control over the human DNA. Even if we mess it up big time, then there will still be some humans with good DNA, whatever that means, which can survive. Even in case that there will not be any human DNA to survive, it will not matter. The universe will just move on, and there is no plan in that. Nature has no plan. The result of what is happening is nature. Interesting is the fact, I think that it is a fact, that where there is water plus some elements and some heat, then after some long time, billions of years, some kind of life forms. Life for me means that there is this mechanism which transforms matter into something else. So the heat and the water could be replaced by different entities. Important is that they move or automatically transform themselves. This new something else will be mainly composed of things that form more easily or quicker, are more resistant, etc. This leads to the matter being transformed to this better matter. However, inside this better matter, life will make sure that the matter will be transformed again into something better. In the end, this leads to nature as we know it. We can look at it as a game the universe plays, because if the living conditions become impossible, life stops. However, when the right conditions are met again, this whole process will start again. By the way, it will start at zero. Maybe its result will be different, or it will not finalize at all in some form of life that can think. But that does not matter. Nothing matters. A good question here is, are there other ways of life that can form? Are there other ways of life can form? Are there other ways that life as this mechanism can form? Could there be a different nature which is based on a different rule? Ad hoc, I would deny this. Life as we know it is an automatic process that starts when the conditions are right. The rule is the better matter multiplies. And by the way, there is no end to this. Nobody wins. We cannot say, and the winner of universe XYZ is the Earth. Everything flows, nothing is fixed, except for this one rule. I'm currently researching in the field of designing a model to classify information. Well, I should put it more lightly. I'm thinking about it. The information classification research seems a challenge to me. Most people do not understand what I try to find out. Maybe they're right, but I think that information can be classified. Therefore, if you would have a system to classify information, we can ask different people to put the information into the appropriate boxes. We would get a statistical distribution of what real people think and derive from that what makes sense now, and then improve the derived knowledge with every new cognition or idea mankind is developing. The result, if there should be one, would be a collection of things which are true. These true things will obviously be seen by humans in different ways. This different view can be imagined as filters in front of the truth. These filters can be defined. That means we know why a certain person interprets the truth in his way. However, that does not make the truth false. It just means that the human is human. That means not realistic. In the chapter about truth, I now have altered the model of describing information, as the model described in this letter was not providing the desired result. Note that this letter has been written in the year 2003, so 1 year before the book was printed. Well, that is what I do at the moment, besides studying Russian, going out, working too much, doing some sports and traveling a bit. That was the end of there's the ending of this letter to a friend or two friends in Italy. Chapter 2.3, Motivation. Every month, many new books on supernatural subjects appear. Most of those authors write about humans and their feelings, even though the scientific positioning of the book suggests that it must be independent from personal feelings. This emotional type of writing is excellent when the goal is to give the reader something that is of emotional interest. However, if it is bad, if we want to discover scientifically what is true and therefore must be independent from personal interest. The human brain likes to hear things that allow the brain to continue to live in its own reality. Forcing the brain to give up an old belief is maybe the most difficult thing for a brain to do. Unluckily, this is also true for many brains of scientists. In a computer, you are able to load a new program within seconds. Contrary to that, the human brain requires years to supplant an old program or belief with a new program. This is already true for the brain of a young person. For the brain of an adult, reprogramming might become impossible. After the reprogramming, the old belief may still be around, as there is no easy and secure way to remove completely the original belief. Footnote: the way a brain works is being described in the chapter Brain. From philosophy, I have not received a consistent and universal view of the world, but only disconnected bits of useful information in an ocean of idiotic, useless and false statements and ideas. There is nothing difficult inside this book. Every single statement and concept in this book is understandable. There are no formulas at all. Formulas would need physical and mathematical knowledge to understand. This knowledge is not required, although a well-trained brain helps to understand the great unified theory of philosophy. The only difficulty for the reader will be to understand the implications of one simple rule applied to a starting condition. The rest is normal human thinking or human intelligence applied to the world we experience every day. This book could be 2-page, see chapter Main Statements, or 2,000 pages. The basic concept behind the book will be the same. If the length of the book would be 2 pages, it would take many years for the reader to find out all the implications, and often there would be errors in his conclusions. A book of 2,000 pages I could not write because of lack of time, and such a long book would not be read. Therefore, I decided to keep the book to about 200 pages. This length allows explaining the main ideas in sufficient detail and giving enough examples to make the concept clear. The examples will help the reader to think about real-life situations onto which he can apply this new great unified theory of philosophy. The examples allow having anchor points, and they offer a base to build upon. Another reason for this book was that, to my knowledge, there are only biased publications about this kind of subject. The believers are biased towards supernatural things, and the critical thinkers are biased against supernatural things. In the dispute between the two currently, there is no concept that allows building up a consensus. The idea is to create a theory or concept that allows building up the knowledge of the universe. This knowledge of the universe is human knowledge, but only because humans discovered it and wrote it down. I expect that any other intelligent being would come up with the exact same view when confronted with our world. Footnote: in different locations of the universe, different systems and life forms could have developed. This difference in environment will have created different driving forces or emotions. The great unified theory of philosophy crystallized during a 20-year period of research. It has not been designed because there has never been a goal to design it. The great unified theory of philosophy is the result of a nature-like design process. During the whole 20 years, any result was possible. Some people live according to the rule that the way along the middle is the best. When looking for an answer to a problem, they usually combine parts of different theories. They intuitively feel that the way along the middle concept is the best answer. They are right, actually. It is the best answer. However, it is the best answer only if you want to create harmony for you and your environment. The way along the middle concept will completely fail when your goal is to arrive at the truth. Chapter 2.4. Some definitions of words. In the great unified theory of philosophy, we separate between logical reasons and emotional reasons. As always, in the nature, the two types of reasons cannot be fully separated. In every decision, there will always be some emotional reasons as well as some logical reasons. When the emotional level is dominating, the following words will be used: wishful thinker, believer, or supernatural force, or faith or belief. Footnote to believe. Interesting is that a believer takes faith and belief as 100% statements, although such 100% statements do not exist in the universe. When the rational level is dominating, the following words will be used respectively throughout this book: realist, non-believer, scientists, or physical laws, or probabilities. Emotion. The driving force for human is the emotion. The brain's desire is to experience positive emotions. All information in our brain is linked to emotions. The genetic predisposition will have created an initial strategy how to link information to emotions. During the active and passive education of the human brain, the links will be altered, but usually only to a very small extent. These emotional links decide what we are going to think, not the logical relationship of the information itself. Pragmatic approach. The pragmatic approach is the key to success. To use a pragmatic approach means that we will search for the optimal solution using our available resources. Footnote to available resources. Resources are time, dedication, intelligence, independence, tools, and others. For an optimal solution, we will have used our resources correctly weighted. We must not spend many of our resources for unlikely solutions. Footnote to unlikely solutions. Only initially it seems impossible that a thinking strategy can be based on the prior knowledge of the solution. However, this is exactly how the brain works. If this concept is not clear, the chapters on brain and truth will provide clarification. It is interesting, but perfectly true, that the brain understands complex systems only after having understood them almost perfectly already. The understanding of a complex system does not arrive during one session. The understanding arrives over a period of many days, weeks, months, or even years, when we finally shout, "Eureka!" our brain has adjusted the last associations required for the understanding of our problem. All the other required associations our brain had silently adjusted before. In general, humans wrongly assume that only the last association was important and that the learning was done in one split second. This is completely wrong. Footnote to completely wrong. If we learn a new word, only few associations need to be adjusted. If we learn a new theory, many millions of associations need to be adjusted. If one new word takes 1 minute, we are able to estimate how long it will take to adjust millions of associations. Important to know is that we always give an answer independent from whether we use a pragmatic approach or any other approach. Problems concerning complex systems are, however, not solvable if no pragmatic approach is being used. Examples of answers are: think nothing or say nothing. Say, I don't know. Say, it does not matter to me. Say, put into one sentence the answer is the following. Say, having just one day, the answer is the following. The best answer for complex systems will always be, I do not exactly know, but the chances are XYZ percent for solution A, XYZ for solution 2, and so on. Chapter 2.5. What you will know after having read the book. The content of this book has been researched over a period of 2 decades. This required implementing billions of associations inside my brain. Depending on the starting condition of the reader's brain, it will take weeks, months, or even years to implement similar associations. Reading a book on such a global theory, like the Great Unified Theory of Philosophy, will require touching almost every piece of information the brain has ever learned. Touching any piece of information inside the brain will always result in changed associations concerning this piece of information with other related pieces of information. Each piece of information, footnote on piece of information, a piece of information is actually not exactly locatable because the piece of information itself is just many associations. Some of those associations produce emotions, words, or signals to make our muscles move. So each piece of information inside the brain will defend its many existing associations. This makes it a hard struggle for a new theory to take possession of a brain. The general difficulty of philosophy has 3 independent reasons. Footnote on independent. Complete independence does not exist in the universe, because if 2 things are completely independent, they are not part of the same universe. However, because the 3 reasons are almost independent from each other, I use the word independent. So the general difficulty of philosophy has 3 independent reasons. First, we will never be able to prove that the universe or the system in which we live is the whole system. Second, the complexity of the universe or the system in which we live is so high that the calculation of probabilities of certain subsystems, footnote on subsystems. These subsystems could be the weather, stock market, economical system, social systems, ecosystems, the evolution, and many others. So the calculation of probabilities of certain subsystems often leads to completely different results stretching from 0% to 100%. Footnote on 100%. The difference in probabilities between different people depends on different basic probabilities. See the chapter Truth for details. So, stretching from 0 to 100%, excluding 0 and 100. The different results often derive from just slightly different probabilities for the base facts we use for our calculation. To formulate it better, I need to say for our simulation of the model of the system inside our brain. And third independent reason is the person is not interested in searching for the truth. He is only interested in proving that what he feels or thinks is true. Footnote 2, true. The results from a person which does not search for the truth must be excluded from answering the questions for truth. Those results may only be used as examples of human behavior. End of chapter 2.